Hi, I'm Steve. You can call me Steve. Once when I was a kid in Australia, my family spent an evening in someone else's backyard. Someone pointed out some passing flying foxes. I didn't see them, and I didn't know what they were, but I was mildly worried they'd come get me because I didn't know what they were. They're bats, and while they do fly, they have nothing to do with foxes. They eat fruit and insects and have absolutely no interest in people, which is something kid me would have been happy to know. Bats have had a frightening reputation for a long time. The reason Batman is Batman is because he thought criminals would be scared of bats, and therefore scared of a guy dressed as a giant bat. Well, that, and he had bats living under his house, and when life gives you bats, make a bat cave. Honestly, I'd be scared of a creepy, violent guy with utility belt no matter what animal he was dressed as. Lamb Man would be freaking terrifying if he was throwing lamarangs with pinpoint accuracy. Where was I going with this? Oh yeah, bats. For centuries, bats have been associated with vampires and Halloween, and by centuries I mean like 120 years. Bram Stoker popularized the Vampire Association when he wrote Dracula in 1897, but vampires and blood-eating bats have been linked in popular culture before that. Blood-sucking undead monsters have been around forever, but the bat thing is pretty recent. There are more creepy things to be associated with than vampires, though. Long before Stoker, the Book of Leviticus called them unclean birds. Given that they're mammals and not birds, I think we can safely ignore anything Leviticus has to say on the subject. It wasn't just in Europe that bats got a raw deal. Large swathes of West Africa see them as witches or ghosts. However, not every culture has reviled them. China has long considered them symbols of happiness, and the Indonesians and ancient Greeks carried around pieces of bat for protection and good luck. That's how various groups of humans see bats, but what are bats really like? Mostly harmless. The vast majority of them eat insects and fruit, and there would be so many more moths to deal with if it weren't for the bats controlling the moth population. The fruit-eating ones are important for pollinating and dispersing seeds of the fruits they eat. No bat pollination, no bananas, no avocado toast. They won't try to fly into your hair, the key word there being try. For the most part, bats are pretty good at not flying into things. The reason the hair myth got started is that some bats roost hanging upside down. So when they want to stop roosting and fly away, they spread their wings, let go, and drop, and then flap madly to gain altitude. This is the clumsiest part of the process, and if you happen to be standing in their drop zone, it may appear to you that you're being dive-bombed by a bat. You're not, you're just in the way. Also, it turns out that, while I said, for the most part they're good at not crashing into things, they're really bad at not crashing into each other. They do it all the time while they're feeding. Yes, okay, some bats do drink blood, but it's 3 species out of 1,200. Yes, they're called vampire bats, and yes, they do have the potential to spread rabies, but they're more interested in cattle than you. And judging by the geographic distribution of my viewers, they probably don't live near you. Bats are a legitimate reservoir for diseases. Maybe COVID-19, maybe not, we're not 100% sure at this point. If you're really worried about being harmed by bats, then leave the bats alone. Don't futz with them. If you're fascinated by bats, still don't futz with them. They're wild animals and they don't react well to being handled. The disease thing is a real hazard too, and if you handle them and you're not a professional biologist, there's a good chance you could catch something. I'm not saying go exterminate them, just give them space. They're best admired from a distance or in meme form, and really, they should be admired, not reviled. How can anybody not find this adorable? Memes are public domain, right? That's bats. They're not malevolent blood seekers, but rather timid little flittermouses that really want to avoid you. They've gotten a bad rap over the years, and this has resulted in some fairly bizarre mistreatment. During World War II, an American dentist had the idea to take bats, tie incendiary bombs on a timer to their legs, stuff them into bombs by the thousands, and drop them over Japanese cities in the middle of the night. The idea was that the bats would go roost in wooden houses and other buildings before daylight, at which point the timers would go off and the bats would catch fire and cause panic and chaos. This isn't what the Geneva Convention means when it bans biological warfare, but it should. It's needlessly cruel to the bats as well, but that dentist didn't care because he thought bats were vile creatures that deserved to be roasted. The weirdest part of this whole thing wasn't that crazy dentist, but the fact he managed to convince the US Army that he wasn't crazy, and to develop this idea to the point of building fake Japanese villages in the desert and lobbing bat bombs at it. I can only assume that in World War II, the US military was secretly run by cartoon supervillains. Thanks for watching. I've been Steve.